So, I stand here before you as being recovered from entitlement. Absolutely. You see, entitlement is an epidemic, and it's everywhere. And societally, we think that when we think of entitled kids, we have this vision of an entitled brat who behaves a certain way, like maybe a Paris Hilton sort of thing. I would like to challenge you that every single one of you has an entitled brat in you. So let that sit for a second. Are the wheels turning? Because if they are, good. If they're not, wake up. So what do I mean by we all have an entitled brat in us? We have a certain way of being that every single one of us believe we're owed something. Whether that's respect, acknowledgement, love, money, title. So where does this come from? Mark touched on it. It comes from a place of where somewhere in our life, maybe growing up or when we're younger, we felt neglected. Our needs weren't met for whatever reason. So when I was 7 years old, I was your typical 7-year-old, very gregarious and fun and fully self-expressed. And my life changed because my father used to beat me. And I remember one particular incident after a beating. I'm sitting in my closet, surrounded by the toys he'd bought me. And I can feel the welt in my bum. And I'm confused, and I'm sad. There's a part of me that's angry. I'm feeling really lonely. And there's two questions that shaped me into the man that I became. Number one is, why don't they love me? And number two, what do I have to do for them to love me? And those are the questions that shaped me into who I became. And I became this really arrogant, self-centered guy with this massive chip on his shoulder because, you know what? The world owed me. And I would carry myself that way, and I would create distance between people. And the irony was, what I really wanted was to connect. I wanted that connection. But my arrogance did this. I did the old Heisman. So my question to you is, where in you is that arrogant being? Where in you is that entitled brat who's really craving what they missed back here? So for you children in the room, I would like you to consider that your parents may have a sense of entitlement. And for you parents in the room, your children have a sense of entitlement. For you advisors in the room, you have a sense of entitlement. I'm entitled to that big client. I'm entitled to this. So we talked about where it comes from. Let's talk about what are some of the symptoms so you can start to recognize it. The first one is a sense of defiance. They're sort of standoffish. The second one, let me remember my notes, is they want to challenge the status quo. And the reason is because they have a sense of insecurity that came back from back there. And number two is there's some sort of anger undercurrent. They always appear pissed off or they appear angry for some reason. Well, of course, they felt neglected. That's where the anger comes from. So you know how, and you may recognize some of these people, some of them might be you. You know how parents may love their children so much, they may not want them to suffer? Can you identify with that, some of you? Okay, I knew you were in the house. Or maybe children have been given so much that they may not value and appreciate what they currently have. Some of you adults may be those children. Or, you know how, as a parent, you really want to empower your child because you want to teach him responsibility. The main problem is that you may have already spoiled your child. You need to acknowledge that. The damage may be done. Now, as I said, I'm recovered from entitlement, so it's possible to recover from this stuff. You know, there is a cure. You can get over it. But the damage may be done already, and that's okay. In the work that we do, we call out the white elephants. Entitlement is an issue in families. Call it for what it is. Don't ignore it. Don't say, if I don't look at it, it won't be there. It's there. As a parent, you may want to take responsibility that you created some of that. It doesn't make you a bad parent. It doesn't make you wrong. You did what you could based on your own experience. The other main problem is a lot of children have been given too much too soon. And that might be in the form of a credit card, a cell phone. If we're talking about the big boys and girls, maybe responsibility, maybe ownership. And I can see where that comes from. You know, as a parent, you really want to empower your kids. I want them to be responsible. I want to give them things so they can learn and grow. But they may not be ready. And the other main problem is that as parents, many parents have abdicated their parental responsibilities to their advisors. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to let the trust document deal with this sensitive issue. Or I'm going to let my will deal with it when I'm gone. Because I don't want to piss off my kids. Oh my God, they're angry at me. There's a lot of parents out there that want their kids to like them. Can you identify with that? Come on, be honest. Thank you. And by the way, this, I'm just agreeing to the full exposure. Okay? Thank you very much. You got it. I've got a really weird sense of humor. We have to recognize that we cannot teach our children from documents. We teach them by being parents. And the biggest piece around that is we model a behavior that's congruent with our actions. I work with a family where dad says it's really important for us to be a good steward of the wealth. And yet dad has this lifestyle which is bar none. Lots of properties, the private jet, lots of expensive wines. Not really aligned with stewardship. He's more like spending. Our actions must be congruent with what we say. That teaches children boundaries. We both know if you were able to, as a parent, maybe let your kids suffer a little bit, just a little, not too much, but just enough, they actually might value and appreciate what hard work is. They actually might get that concept. Because, as Mark was pointing out, kids nowadays have a very different description of what work actually is. You know, the 7 days a week, 24/7, that's not them. They're like 10 to 2, and that's a round of golf, by the way. Right? And parents don't realize that by golfing, they're actually working. So as Mark pointed out, the value set is completely misaligned. We also know if you were able to maybe say no some of the time, you may actually teach your kids boundaries. And they may not go out there expecting to get everything they want. Because when you say yes to your child all the time, what you're telling them is they can get whatever they want. And when they go out there in the real world and the world says no, guess who they're pissed off at? Yeah, Mom or Dad. So saying yes all the time is short-term gain for long-term pain. They will resent you eventually. So you might as well get the resentment over with right now. Let's get it over with. Be pissed off at me now and move on. We also know if as a parent you were able to have a process or a structure where you were able to share your story with your kids. Here's what it was like building the business. Here's what I learned from that. They may actually get to understand what's involved in building a business instead of enjoying all the fruits of your labor. And they might also get to understand what stewardship really is. Because stewardship is a responsibility. And sometimes responsibility is a burden. And it's not easy. We live in a society where story time is gone. How many of you guys remember story time around the dinner table when you were growing up? Lots of us. But nowadays, kids are so busy with so many activities, parents are all working. Where's the story time? It's vanished. There was a study done in the States by an insurance company, I don't remember who, and they asked wealthy children in their 50s to 60s, what is the one thing they wanted more from their parents? Any idea what the answer was? Time. Yes. Yes. But in particular, stories. I want to hear your story. Tell me how you built it. With some of the families that I serve, the number one issue that children have is I want Dad to tell me the story. Tell me how you made that decision, David. Help me understand. And what do parents do? Well, let's introduce you to, no offense, the advisor, the lawyer, the accountant, the banker, and they'll teach you. No, they want you. It goes back to the neglected thing. Can you see that? I don't have time to tell you because I'm busy running the business, so what happens? They go right back to here feeling neglected, and then no wonder they feel entitled. You're constantly feeding the loop. So I'd like you to imagine you're having a meeting with a colleague, and it's over lunch, and your colleague is sharing with you how impressed they are with your child's work ethic, and how much of a leader they've become in society, and how much they're really contributing. And you get this warm sense of pride in knowing you've done an amazing job with your children. They're actually contributing and making a difference. Or imagine it's Christmas time and your grandchild is complaining to their parent, your child, their disappointment in the present they got. It wasn't this, and your child is sharing with your grandchild the importance of gratitude and appreciation. And it just clicks. You go, wow, they're living the values I talked about. And I'm seeing it right in front of my eyes. And you can see how your values have transitioned from one generation to the next. And it dawns on you, it's because I was willing to have the difficult conversations. I was willing to deal with the white elephant way back when. So I got a question for you. And I need you to be really honest. How important is it for you to have children that value hard work, who appreciate and respect what they already have and what they might be getting. Keyword is might be getting. And for you to have a platform to share your story with your kids, how important is that to you? Just by show of hands, how important is that? So I got a question for you. What would that be worth? Priceless. So what are you doing about it? I'm enrolled in a current leadership program, which is really, really hard. And one of the principles in there, and David will probably touch on this, is really simple. It says, are my actions that of someone who is interested or committed? The key word is action. So most of you said it would be really important to have those things. Some of you said it'd be valuable, it'd be priceless. So my question to you is, what are you going to do about it? What's the action you're going to take at the end of today to do something about that? My name again is Franco Lombardo. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.